So as a youth growing up, I'm in my 20s now, it's making me really question, why me, God? Why are you taking me through this battle to lose my dad, to lose my grandma, to lose my sister, to lose the woman that raised me, and then to lose her dad and her mom, all these people, 6 people that I lost in my life. Most people would have had a breakdown, nervous breakdown, psychological breakdown, but I was still standing.
Before these streets bore our names, they carried our footsteps. Before the skyline stretched upward, we built from the ground. In every corner of the city, our stories whispered from brick walls, church pews, and barbershop chairs. Here in Kansas City, Black excellence doesn't ask permission. It builds, leads, heals, creates, and reigns. The voices you are about to hear are not just stories. These are sacred echoes, the roots and rise of our present, the regals shaping what's to come. This is Echoes of the City. Some people are born into comfort. Others are forged by fire. Kansas City has watched Terrell Ray on stages, in boardrooms, in the street advocating change. But before the influence, before the microphones, before the movement, there was a little boy learning how to survive in a world that was never gentle with him. His journey began in homes where love was present but stability wasn't promised. He grew up learning that sometimes the people who shape you are not the ones you expected to raise you. From childhood through custody, from heartbreak through loss, from anger through awakening, his story is more than what happened to him. It's about who he chose to become in spite of it all. He turned trauma into testimony. He turned pain into purpose. He turned his fight into fuel for a city that needed his voice. Through fatherhood, faith, and relentless commitment to change, Terrell discovered that legacy isn't built by perfection. It's built by perseverance. He didn't just rise, he rebuilt. And now his purpose is bigger than his past. It's for the community, for the youth, for the hope of a better tomorrow. This is not just a story of a man who beat the odds. It's a story of a man who changed them. Welcome to Echoes of the City, the roots and rise of Kansas City Black Regals. Welcome to the story of Terrell Ray.
What's up, Kansas City? I'm Terrell Ray, and I am here to give God his glory. I am born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri, product of 64130, the 50s, notorious 50s. I want people to know that no matter where you're from, you can always be better than the product of your environment. Growing up as a kid, I don't have the most or the best memories of a structured household. My dad was an alcoholic, my mom was a crackhead. So I have very vivid memories of them. I have 0 memories of them together, but really not a whole lot of them, even individually, of, parenting, being loved on, being taken out to dinner, celebrating birthdays, things like that. It was just one of those circumstances where I truly believe I was tested at a young age. And as I grew older in life, I understood that purpose as a child that I did not know then. My grandmother, she came and rescued me. And I use the word rescued because if you ever think about animals that's on the streets or animals that's starving without parents and without people taking care of them, they're just out there lost in the world. And that's what it felt like to me and my sister. It felt like we was out here lost in the world. So my grandma came and rescued us from our mom and brought us over to her side of the family for my auntie, which I consider my stepmom, for her to raise us. And that was a challenging part of my life as well, because they took in so many different of my relatives, cousins, house full, 3-bedroom house full of 30 people, it felt like, because it was so many of us, and they did their best to just make me into the man I am today. So shout out to them for just standing up and being that role model, being that example, and just taking the lead of what my parents could not do. Growing up in my aunts and uncle house, I loved it because it was full of family. It was a lot of people there always. They kicked it on the weekends. But it also, I think I learned a lot from them even as a kid, because I don't smoke or drink. And they were heavy drinkers, heavy smokers. Who know what else they was doing, back in the 90s, you know what I'm talking about. But I enjoyed it though. One, I was very appreciative because they did not have to take me in. I could have just went into juvenile custody and, state's custody and been a product of that system, which is something I was later on in life. But it was pleasurable, but at the same time, it had its moments where it's just like, dang, this is my life as a kid. Roaches in the house, mice, crackheads, you name it. We really had to deal with that, especially in the 90s. I remember walking to, and this is when my mom, I was still living with my mom. I remember walking to a place, and as a child, you have no idea what it is. I'm thinking it's a restaurant. I don't remember the age I am, but I just remember going to a place where me, my sister, and my mom, we had dinner. I had no idea what that place was as a youngster, but as I grew older and I'm driving down this same street on Linwood, that memory just clicked in, and I said, dang, that looks like this place that me, my mom, and my sister visited as a kid. And rolling past it, I realized it's the Salvation Army. So at that time, as a kid, I had no idea that my mom was incapable of feeding us and taking care of us. So we had to go get assistance from the Salvation Army. And those circumstances truly made me into the man I am today. It made me appreciate life. It keeps me humble, because understanding you can be on top at one point in your life, and then the next you can be down. So always just be grateful what God has blessed you with, and don't take it for granted. So I have a very distinct life, a little bit different from a lot of kids, how they was raised. Unfortunately, as I spoke about earlier, being a product of the system, when I was 12 years old, I actually had a court date, and I had no idea what I was doing down in the Jackson County juvenile courthouse. I had got myself into some trouble, had a fight, had an incident, and unfortunately, because of my aggressive nature is what it was used to describe me, my family didn't know what to do with me. And of course, like I said, they were already taking in so many of my cousins to where, me being this, what's the word, I'm trying to think what's a good word to use. This out of control teenager, wouldn't listen, very angry. They probably didn't know how to handle me, and me not being their child, they probably didn't want to take on that situation anyway. So I landed myself down in juvenile courthouse on a fight assault charge. And I remember the judge telling me I had to go over to the Family Attention Center, which is right next door on Cherry. And it was going to be for about 30 days. They was going to do evaluation, and then I would go back home. Well, that 30 days turned into 4 years. And it was a nightmare. It was a straight nightmare, because as a youngster, all you want to do is get back home to your family. But to turn 30 days into 4 years, I went in at age of 12, did not get out till I was 16, right before I was going to start my senior year in high school. And I've been in about, I want to say 12 or 13 facilities, anywhere from juvenile, Ozanam, Hilltop, Niles Home for Children. I've been to a lot of places, even was shipped out to, and I say shipped out as a little joking thing, but they shipped me out to St. Louis. I was in a facility out there in Webster Groves, Missouri. And then my last place that I was at was in Nevada, Missouri. A lot of people probably call it Nevada, Missouri, but it's called Nevada, Missouri. And that's where I learned to get my act together. I was very athletic, very good at basketball, good at football. And it was at that time where the staff, people told me, say, hey, you don't belong in here. You need to get out so that way you can play high school sports. When I was locked up, I had actually just got in. I was probably only in there for maybe 8 months. And I received a devastating phone call that my father had passed. But they didn't tell me immediately. They just came and got me from the facility, took me home, and I'm upstairs, I'm playing Super Mario Brothers with my sister, and I can hear my family downstairs just talking, and I know something is going on because it's a lot of family over, and it's not abnormal for them to be over because, like I said, it was the party house where everybody always came and kicked it. But this day just felt like something was off. And as I'm up there with my sister, I hear someone say, "Have y'all told them yet?" And I'm like, what are they gonna tell us? Are they talking about us? So my auntie brought me down and she advised that my dad had passed. As I stated earlier, he was a heavy drinker. He ended up getting throat cancer. He went to the hospital. We thought everything was okay. They removed it. Unfortunately, he passed in that same very house downstairs in his room. The effect of losing him, it probably wasn't as large as another child who had their dad in their life, but it still was an impact in my life probably later on than it was at the moment. And I say that because my dad was not able to teach me a lot of things that a dad should do. His alcohol addiction played a huge role, and losing your father at such an early age, 12 or 13 years old, you do miss out on those key things: graduation, grandkids, learning how to tie a tie, learning how to change a tire, things like that fathers are around. So, and also just having that example of a father figure and a man in the household. So I didn't have that ability to, to have my father around or to get that type of knowledge. So it affected me a great deal, and it made me more angry because, at that time as kids, we're not thinking about questioning God. But as you grow older in life, that's when I began to question God. In addition to losing my father while I was locked up, I also lost my grandmother, the one who I was closest to. And sadly, she died on my birthday. This is when I was in St. Louis at the St. Louis facility. I was unable to come home for her funeral because I was so far away. The states, they did give us home passes, but I think I had already used mine for the month. So I was unable to attend her funeral, but she was one of my closest grandparents. The person that came and rescued me, I still have that memory, and, forever grateful for her coming to get me and my sister. When I was at the Niles Home for Children, I was bad, obnoxious, just doing what kids do and fighting, and I remember a staff member telling me, he's like, when before your 18th birthday, you're going to be dead or in jail if you don't get it together. And at that time, I thought he was crazy. Like, why would you tell a kid that? That's what I really thought growing up. And every single birthday that I've had, I've always go back to him telling me that I will be dead by my 18th birthday or in jail. And it was a little bit of motivation, but it was more motivation to prove him wrong, not necessarily just to say, hey, I'm free, I'm out, or I'm not dead or anything like that. But no, it was more, I don't think that's appropriate to say to a child, because that can be taken in a bad sense, but I work now at Hilltop Residential Facility. I'm part-time there, and I don't never use that when I talk to the kids. I teach them what they can be when they turn 18 and what they can be as they get older in life versus what could happen if they continue on down that path. And I feel like every child that is, going through challenges, they need to hear encouragement and not negativity. So here's a funny story. So when I first got out, I thought I was going to Westport, because when I first got locked up, I was going to Westport Middle. So I automatically assumed I was going to Westport. I started going to their football practice, made the team, played in the first game at the Westport Tiger, only to find out the game was right before school started. Only to find out I get a letter in the mail saying I'm going to Southeast High School. And I was like, what? All my friends is at Westport. Why are you sending me to Southeast? I didn't want to be a Knight. No, I wanted to be a Tiger. But through that ordeal, being locked up for 4 years, being able to get out, it was truly an experience. I wish I could have had all 4 years playing sports. Who knows if I would even be sitting in this chair right now if I had that opportunity. But at the same time, I'm still blessed to be in this chair because I'm alive, and doing positive things. But yeah, being a Knight, creating memories at Southeast, creating friendships with people I'm still friends with now. It was a great experience. I did not think that I would graduate high school, not because I couldn't make the grades, because I actually had a 3.1 grade point average. I was very smart. but my behavior concerns is what kept me back. So it was a huge accomplishment graduating, and I'm proud to be a Knight. So as I mentioned in the story, I have a sister. Her name is Sharita. She was my pride and joy, the love of my life, my ace boom coon. We were thick as thieves, brother and sister. If somebody messed with me, she's coming to get you. She was 1 year older than me, so of course that bond is very close. We same mom, same dad. And when I say that I love my sister dearly, it was nothing I would not do for my sister. She was opposite of me, She was also, the thing is, she was also aggressive too. She was a fighter, she beat me up before, but she was also so intelligent. She went to school, she graduated from Westport, and then went to UMKC, and she was a Delta. So very smart, very well loved, just, I don't think she ever had an enemy because she was just a sweet person. And unfortunately, tragic hit. Wasn't expected at all. Working at the Landing, Sam Goody Music Land at the time. I'm the assistant manager. It was on a Saturday morning, and I talked to my sister, all the time. And as I'm opening up the store, I get a phone call, and it's my stepmom's daughter, my cousin. She says, "Hey, when's the last time you talked to your sister?" And I said, "Yesterday, the day before, which is a Friday." She said, "Well, there's been an incident. We need you to come down to Truman Hospital." Not thinking nothing of it. She didn't tell me exactly what took place. She just said there's been an incident and they found your sister. So I'm rushing. I had to close the store until the manager was able to get there, close the store. I'm rushing. I have a car on Datings. So if you know how Datings ride, you got to be smooth with it. I did not care. I was getting down from 63rd Street down to Truman on 27th, 24th Street. I wanted to get down there in 5 minutes, and I was flying. I don't know if I stopped at stop signs, red lights, anything. I just know I needed to get down there. So I get to Truman, and my family's in the waiting room, and they come up and they console me and just say, "Hey, we just got some information, but we want to first make sure that it's her. They brought a young lady in that they need someone to go back to identify her. Would you like to go do it?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't want to do that because I know my aggression. And if I see that, I probably would have snapped." So my cousin goes in the back to identify my sister. He comes back up and he says, "Yes, that is Sharita back there." Immediately, my family just starts crying, people holding on to me. It's going to be okay, praying, all of that, things I don't care to hear. The only thing in my mind is what happened, who's going to pay. So as the weekend goes on, I'm up there at the hospital with my sister. She's clinging to life because they have her on life support. If they take her off that life support, she's going to die. So I'm making my trips back and forth from home, going home to shower, going back up there. And then Monday comes. And Monday, the doctor comes into the family waiting area, and he tells us that they do not believe that she's going to make a recovery. But if she did, she would be in a vegetative state of mind. She's never going to be like who she was before. And they gave us a decision to keep her on life support to see what happens, or to go ahead and take her off and allow her to transition. My mom, she thought she was going to make that decision. And I said, absolutely not, because you have not been in our lives. And this is not something that my family or me is okay with you doing. So my family gave me the opportunity to make that decision. They put it all on me at the age of 20. Hardest decision ever in my life I had to make was telling the doctor to take my sister off life support, because I refused to see her live her life in that state, to where I cannot talk to her, I cannot hug her the way I want to. She cannot communicate and be active like she should. I did not want my sister laying in a hospital bed for 30 years. I didn't want to do that. So I made the most difficult decision to take her off life support. And I want to say within about 8 minutes, she passed. But I knew a part of her was still alive because my uncle whispered something in her ear and she cried. So she heard whatever he said. And if you ask me, I think he said he was going to kill the people. Hopefully they can put that in there. But I think that's what he said because he was a little cuckoo, y'all. But yeah, she cried, and I could still, sense that life in her. So when my sister died, and I found out the cause of it, it was shocking because, as I say, that my sister was such a nice individual. I didn't think that anyone would want to harm her. But as the detectives started doing their investigation, it started unraveling. And what happened was my sister was at Swope Park, right there by the loop where we used to all hang out at. I'm driving my car down there every Sunday. She's in that same area. She was left for dead, shot 6 times. And a passerby saw a young lady in the road and they stopped and offered assistance. They're the one who called 911 to get her some medical attention. It was later determined that a man that she was involved with is the one who shot her. Then he stole her car, and he had it for a while. They was able to track him down based on emails that they had between each other. I guess I never got to read them or see them, but I guess there was email chain that they had arguments in these emails, and he may have threatened her. I don't know the exact details of the emails, but that was part of it. So they was able to identify him as a suspect and then later charge him. He did go to jail. I do not remember the sentence that they gave him, but I do believe he is still in prison today. I did not go to the court hearing because it was just, it was too emotional for me. And I was still in that angry sense of mind to where I know y'all saw the videos when people jump over the benches and they attack the people. I would have definitely done that. So I could not attend the court hearings. Seeing my sister, go through what she had to go through, it left me in a big state of not only guilt, but after losing her, I felt very alone because, as I stated, she was my rock. She was the closest person to me. I didn't have anybody else but her. And losing her, a piece of me was lost. I felt like when they lowered her in that ground, my emotions was in that casket with her, where I became very emotionless, where it's just like, I did not care about nothing at all. Anybody that was around me during that time, they would vouch for this story. If you were someone I dated, I probably mistreated you, and I'm not sitting here saying this as glorifying what I've been through, but it's more to tell what I was going through and that pain and that brokenness that I spoke about as well. As my life continued, the woman who raised me, she ended up dying. She died of cancer as well. Her mom, who I stayed with for a couple of years, she died as well from Alzheimer's. So everybody on my dad's side is now dead. I had only had a few uncles and aunties still living. I think 3 at the time was still living. So as a youth growing up, I'm in my 20s now, it's making me really question, why me, God? Why are you taking me through this battle to lose my dad, to lose my grandma, to lose my sister, to lose the woman that raised me, and then to lose her dad and her mom? All these people, 6 people that I lost in my life. Most people would have had a breakdown, nervous breakdown, psychological breakdown, but I was still standing. Losing my sister, it made me realize that nobody is immune from death. Her death was catastrophic, but it also gave me a new sense of my life, because I felt like I was the one that should have been in that coffin, not her. And seeing her there, I still have those thoughts of why her instead of me. And it gave me a different outlook in life to where I wanted to let go of all of that aggression that I once had inside of me. And I wanted to become a better person. However, I was still young. I wasn't ready to make that commitment. I wasn't ready to just fully say, God, make me over. But something inside of me was begging for to be saved. I just didn't know it yet. In my 20s, I was a menace. I lived life on the edge. I was not into drugs. Like I said before, wasn't into drugs, wasn't into drinking, but I was into partying. I was into pretty women. I was into being out, having nice cars. I wouldn't necessarily say being flashy, but I did like nice things, to where that road, I thought it was, fun. Of course, everybody in their 20s, you just having fun, you living life each day, YOLO, waking up, doing the same thing, hanging out at Swope Park, hanging out at the Bannister Mall, hanging out on Prospect. That was the life in our 20s. And it's not something that I'm ashamed of at all. Even in my 40s today, I still like that I experienced that part of me, because it did help me grow into my next part of my life in my 30s. When, as you grow, you don't realize how broken you are until you sit down and you look yourself in the mirror and you say, hey, something is not right. And that's something that I did not do until later in my 30s and in my 40s, to start realizing there was changes I need to make. Well, the first change came from being a father. If you're an active father like I am, from the day one, even before when my son was in his mom's stomach, and I was there, the prenatal visits, the weigh-ins, everything that you can think of, I was there active. Having my son, it slowed me down, because I had that memory of losing my dad at a younger age, and I didn't want my son to go through that either. I did not stop going out or didn't stop partying, but I did slow down in a sense that I put my son first. I put my child first in a lot of things. I could have been a better father. I'm not going to sit here and say I was a perfect example as a young 24-year-old, but I was a great example of responsibility. Even though I went out and I hung out, I still got up and I changed diapers. I still made bottles. I still tested it on my arm to see how hot it was. I still burped them, all of that. So I know it was trial and error with my son, that when I had my daughter later on in life, I got it more right with her than I did with my son. He was that test, that a lot of us parents go through with our first child, not knowing how to do things, picking up traits from our childhood that we should not take into raising our children. But overall, it was a lesson and it was a blessing. But as I grew into my 30s, that's when I realized that I was broken. It was something about me that needed to be fixed, but I still was not, I had not put that finger on it just yet to see what is wrong with me. I'm still in my 30s, I'm still thinking like, no, life is good. I'm making money, I'm handsome, I'm healthy. But inside, it was broken. Being a father, it did not have a huge impact when it came to my relationships, or the relationship with his mom. It did not make me love her any more, because I did love her to a great extent already, but it did make me respect her because of everything that women go through, carrying a child, all that other stuff, and postpartum that people can go through. Luckily, we didn't have to go through that, but it did make me respect women more, and also the mother of my children. It made me respect her even more. She is a great example of what a mom is. She's a great example of what a woman is. I've been blessed that God provided her to be the mother of my children. I wouldn't pick anybody else to be the mother of my children. So shout out to you. So parenting my daughter, I was equipped with tools a lot more than what I was when I had my son. My son, as I stated earlier, I raised him more how I was raised. And I didn't learn until later on in life that I was doing things wrong. Growing up, we have these households where it's our house, you do what we supposed to. If I don't want to hear you talk, you don't talk. And that's exactly how I raised my son. Of course, I want him to be man, I want him to be tough. But then I took a scale back because I started reading, watching YouTube videos, things like that, to help me be a better parent, to realize if I continue on parenting my son in this way, it's actually going to push him further away from me. It's going to make him fear me. And I didn't want my son to fear me. I wanted him to respect me. So the whoopings and things like that, I learned how to talk to my son instead of whoop him. because every incident that he goes through, I had to be understanding that I was the same way as a kid. And unfortunately, I got beat. And it was no talking. It was no understand what I'm going through as a kid. But with my son, I was able to do that. So once it got to my daughter, the whoopings basically stopped. What father's going to whoop his daughter? You know, that's your baby. It was hard to see my daughter cry. So, but there was times where I did, you know, I had to put it down because, you know, they'll test you. They'll test your gangster. But I had to, you know, I was a lot more sensitive, a lot more compassionate with my daughter, a lot more understanding with my daughter. And then she also helped me, raising her also helped me be a better father to my son as well. And just knowing that, making that change, I feel like it saved my relationship with my son, because if I had continued on raising him how I was raised, we may not have our bond that we have today. And that is a bond of love and respect, which is something, unfortunately, I did not have growing up. My kids are my pride and my joy. I love them both. I am very blessed that they are by the same woman. I'm not one of them that wants to skip around and have multiple children by multiple women, creating multiple broken homes. No, they're by one person, and I'm going to give you your credit. In my 30s, I started to develop and grow, mature a little bit more, primarily because of my daughter. When she was first born, I actually was sentenced to go serve an assault charge that the judge, he was leaning on me because of this case, because of my situation with my daughter. But I had missed a great part of her upbringing during that time because I had to go serve a little jail sentence because of an assault charge. But my mind at that part in my life, I was like, I need to change completely. I need to stop being out here fighting. I need to stop being out here on dumb stuff. I need to be here for my children and just being away. It wasn't something where I was just gone for months. No, but it was time that took me away from my daughter. So I don't want anyone to think like, oh, he was gone for years. No, nothing like that. Nothing serious like that. But it was just significant time that I could have been having with a newborn at that time. And as I mature with my children, with my daughter, as I grow, of course, still making mistakes in life, a part of me was ready to turn to that next level, to fully, I wouldn't necessarily say fully, but to dip into change. But I wasn't fully committed to changing. I was still half in, half out, not understanding what it took to fully change, not understanding the process, not even committed to that process, if you will. So in 2014, I decided to get baptized. I joined the church and was going faithfully, you know, but I was not 100% committed because I was still going to the Chiefs games during church service. It was, I'm not gonna hold you. It was Chiefs, then God, you know, Chiefs kingdom, God's kingdom. So I would not miss a game. And I knew that was wrong. So I decided to step away from the church. Even though I had got baptized, I had been going faithfully, doing great things, involved in the church. I decided to step back because I was not fully committed. I was not giving God his glory like I should. So I stepped back. I did not revert back to my old ways, but I still kind of was on doing a little bit of dumb stuff, making some mistakes, just living the sinful life, doing things as humans in the flesh do. And it wasn't until later on, the baptism in 2014, it was life-changing because it was a decision that I made. But it wasn't until later on that I realized that I should not have gotten baptized. I should have waited. And the reason being that I felt like I should have waited to get baptized is because I was still broken inside. And even though I know God says, give me you incomplete and I will make you full, I could not fully devote to God. I could not fully devote to change until I sought therapy. And therapy is what really was a big part of saving my life before I actually gave my life to God. So therapy saved my life before I devoted myself to God. It was something that, of course, us as Black men, we are hesitant. we are leery. We are always, talking to someone. It's not beneficial. What am I doing here? I started out lying to the therapist, straight out lying. And the therapist read me. And, my first therapist was a guy, and he told me straight out, he said, if you're not going to be fully committed, don't waste my time, don't come back. And I'm like, what you talking about? I'm here. He said, no, you're not here. He said, your body is here, but I do not have your mind. I do not have your honesty. You're not being transparent. And at that age, I don't know what's transparent mean, ain't no Webster's dictionary. What are you saying? But I remember going home and I looked up that word and I was like, oh, he's basically calling me out. I'm lying. And he picked it up. It's like, wow. How does therapists know that I'm sitting there just job turkey, saying whatever? But it made me click, he said, it made me really think like, hey, something clicked in my head. If you're not going to be honest, don't waste my time. So from that moment forward, I just began to open up. There was a lot in me that I would not discuss. My sister, my dad, my upbringing. Those are all things that I did not realize created that brokenness inside of me. So going to therapy really helped me understand my brokenness. It helped me identify the areas of weakness, the areas of improvement that I needed to make. And because of therapy, I can say that I was able to, this time in my life, this go around in my life, I was able to fully devote myself to God and be committed to giving myself to Him, giving God the glory. And what I mean by that is allowing God to have His hands, have His way with me instead of my way. Before, back in 2014, it was my way. It was the Chiefs. Remember, I told y'all that. Well, now it was God's kingdom over Chiefs kingdom, to where 16 years of being a Chiefs season ticket holder, I got rid of it. And I became a ticket holder of God's kingdom. So I had to tell all my buddies, I'm done with it. I'm ready to start, doing things God way. And it was a roller coaster. I'm not going to sit here and act like immediately I changed. Absolutely not. It was just sitting here thinking about it. It makes me emotional because you see the progress that you make, how far you've come from 3 years ago until now. And it makes me proud of myself. It makes me really remember who I used to be. And even when people say, I was greeted today and they say, oh, you're not the jerk anymore. And I said, no, I had to bury that person. And I made a public proclamation of putting a jerk in a coffin, of saying, hey, that's no longer me. I am Terrell Ray now. This is who I'm going to be going forward. And just being able to do that on a public level was huge to me because of who I am and the platform that I have. So many people looked up to the jerk. And now I'm asking them to allow me to change, allow me to grow, allow me to make mistakes. But not only that, I'm also leading disciples to God because of my platform. So therapy played a huge factor in me being able to stay fully committed with my relationship with God and dig in deeper in a more intimate level. Yeah, faith had a huge, played a huge part in changing my life. I don't think people truly understand how big faith is and how you have to walk blindly sometimes. And I know for me, it was like, no, if I can't see what's ahead of me, I don't want to go. But then as you grow with God and you create that intimate bond, you realize that, no, there are times where He's going to take you through things that only He knows what is coming. You just have to trust Him. And that was super hard for me because I was more hands-on in my life. It was hard for me to let go control of that wheel and allow God to steer. God steered, but I still had that foot on the accelerator back then. But now I had to be able to take that foot off the accelerator, take the hands off the steering wheel, and just sit back and be a passenger in my own life. So having faith was huge in my life because I'm now trusting more in God. And remember, I told you guys, I was questioning God. And when I met with my different therapist, who was Dr. Tamala Ross, the 2025 best therapist of the Kansas City People's Choice Awards, we had a conversation and she said, We were talking about all these things, and I said, Tan, why me? Why did I go through all these things? And she said, Ray, why not you? And that was the first time anybody has ever, even my first therapist, he never said that. That was the first time anybody ever made me question why God took me through what he took me through. Even as a child, he was building me up to become this person that I am today, and I never knew that. But when she said that, it all makes sense. Like, why not me? I'm still standing, I'm still tall. All the things that was meant to defeat me, I'm still here. So that leads me to my next journey of joining one of the best churches in our city, the city, which is led by our lovely pastors, Pastor AD3 and his lovely wife, Jessica Stevenson. I love them to death. They welcomed me with open arms. I joined the city back in 2023, so it'll be going on 3 years next year in, I believe, February or March. They have been a huge impact in my life, just trusting me, giving that guidance, giving me the rope to just, be free. Not saying, hey, you have to be this fully devoted Christian immediately. No, they gave me rope to kind of build myself, to grow within the church, to grow with God as well. I started volunteering with the service, with the church. To today, I'm now on the men's leadership team. So the city played a huge role in the man I am today, and also the continuation of changing my life. And I couldn't be more happy that, God put me in this place. As I'm, growing in life, I've always wanted to give back to my city, Kansas City, Missouri. I love you guys. And a part of that, I wanted to make an impact. That impact was in 2012. I created Stop the Violence KC. And it was an organization that I just wanted to hold myself, my peers accountable for what is taking place in Kansas City. Because we are the voice. It's not the older generation. It's not the ones under us. It was us at that time that can play a huge part in change in our city. So Stop the Violence KC was created just to create awareness regarding violence, murders in the city. It wasn't something as a campaign, to raise money to bring people to justice. No, it was more to just start the conversation of what we can do better as a city in our urban area to make it better for, our city and our next generation coming up. And then I realized the impact that I wanted to make, it wasn't happening. And it was primarily because adults they've already grown in their thinking. If they're going to do something, they're going to do it. Another man, another grown woman is not going to influence them, if you will, just put the guns down or to, make better choices. If it did, we would have a less crime rate. So I made the decision to focus more on the youth. And that's where I gave birth to Our Children, Their Future. And through that organization, I have created workshops to where we are teaching young men ages 10 and up key life essentials that, unfortunately, as I told in my story, I didn't have anyone to do so, to teach me. Teach them how to tie a tie, teach them how to write a resume, teaching them about credit, education, teaching them how to change a tire, teaching them how to cut grass. What else? Job preparation. We teach them how to iron clothes. We also had conversations to get close with these young men, to build connections with these young men. We had amazing speakers every single year that would come through. One was my pastor, Pastor 83, Christopher Good, Earl Watson, the Black Pilots of America. So we are setting these young men up for success instead of failure. And that's more of an impact that I know that I can make in the city, is if I'm touching the kids who's coming up, who are still impressionable, and that I can get into them before they take on what's out here in the streets. So as we are aware that social media plays a huge impact on a lot of things, that platform it can be a blessing, but it can also destroy people. And a part of my platform, I remember back when there was this controversy about NFL players kneeling during the game. And at that time, 2017, I believe, I think was the year, we had Marcus Peters, and he decided to kneel during a football game. And I'm with him. Well, let's kneel. You know, till this day, I don't stand for the national anthem, and I will never stand for that national anthem. But a prominent business owner, Chad Dirt of Auto Trends, which he has serviced several Kansas City Chiefs. He's a car specialist, detail specialist, whatever, customized specialist with rims. I've bought rims from him before. Many of urban Kansas City black men bought rims from Chad. He decided to make a post on social media and say that, well, if Marcus can't stand for the national anthem, then I feel like myself and other businesses should not service him. Someone sent me that post, and that's when everything changed in my life. I became the voice, if you will, of change, to where we were no longer going to allow businesses to say what they want to say, do what they want to do to black citizens of Kansas City. And I responded, made a nice little post that went viral. This was before viral was just a thing now. Like when you went viral back in the day, it was because it meant something. It wasn't because you still in a post. It wasn't because of any negativity. No, if you went viral back in 2017, it had a purpose behind it. So that post went viral. And when I say Kansas City got behind me, they supported me in regards to this incident. Hot 103, Shay Moore at the time was on the morning show. She brought me in for an interview, and myself and Chad together. And that interview, it really just gave me power that I wasn't ready for. And I remember someone telling me, like, dude, you have power like Malcolm X. You have power like Martin Luther King. And I'm just like, dude, you know, I'm taking this in like, wow, you know, for someone to tell me that. But I really didn't understand it at that time until later on. People, they boycotted, you know, Chad's business. A lot of people stopped going there. To this day, I would not go back there. I would never utilize him again. Because it was just an insensitive comment to make. It was just something where you're taking away our freedom of speech. And then for you to be someone that is well loved by the black community, well loved by the Kansas City Chiefs, it was very inappropriate for Chad to make that comment. And then going forward, it literally sparked a light into me to say, I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to continue on. And it happened. People was sending me messages, DMs saying, hey, this happened to me and my family at this restaurant. Can you speak on it? And I was very smart about, you know, what I spoke about, because everybody has a little story. A lot of people be lying. So I did not talk about every single story that people sent me, because I can kind of determine, like, no, you were the problem. But the ones that I did take on, we made a huge impact. You know, we boycotted a lot of places. And one of those was tomfooleries. Tomfooleries decided to discriminate against two black young ladies. They brought that information to me, myself and another young lady named Katina Taylor. We worked together hand in hand back in the day to bring justice to these businesses, and to talk about the injustice, to talk about the mistreatment of black Kansas Cityans. And with tomfooleries, we also had a protest. Boycott. We called for a boycott because of this mistreatment of these two ladies, which ultimately turned into tomfooleries being closed down. And a lot of people did not know that. They didn't know that. I am responsible. Katina is responsible for shutting tomfooleries down. And we all love tomfooleries. That was our spot. But when you go against one of us, you'll go against all of us. And I gained so much respect for that, because it was also at a time where it was a division. People didn't know which side of the fence they wanted to be on. Do we want to stand with what's right for our people, or do we want to still hang out with these places that's offering discounts, places that we're able to chill at and kick it at? We stopped all that, shut it down, you know. So tomfooleries, bye-bye. I'm not sorry for it. You know, best of luck to you, but you should never play with us. Back in 2019, I decided that Black Kansas City, and I say this because later on I'm going to change it up a little bit, so I want people to truly understand how this came about. In 2019, I felt like Black Kansas City was not getting its recognition. We were not being celebrated as we should. And I'm just sitting at home watching the BET Awards. And I say to myself, we need an award show that recognizes us. This isn't to say that we didn't already have one or that no one ever had did one in Kansas City. I just did not know of one of the magnitude that I wanted to create it. So the next day I hop on Facebook and one of my friends, he makes a post and he says, Kansas City needs an award show. The only person that can do it is Terrell Ray. Tag me in the post. And I'm just like, okay. I took note to that and I start planning what has become the Kansas City People's Choice Awards. So the Kansas City People's Choice Awards started out as Black Kansas City because my mindset at that time was making sure that we get our recognition. But then over the years, I start transitioning to, it just needs to say Kansas City as a whole. There was no color designation no longer. So when we first had the award categories, it was Best Black Restaurant, Best Black Barber, Best Black Business. And over, I want to say 2021 maybe, I ended that and just said, no, we're going to be known as the best, period. So Lenexa, Overland Park, anywhere else that has award platforms, if they want to compete or if they want to be known as the best, they're going to have to go through us. And I meant that. So we did have the pitch, and we also had Kansas City Magazine that did have award platforms. We were not represented in either one of those magazines or award platforms at all. I want to say in 2019, 2020, I think we maybe had one winner, a couple of nominees, but I don't think it was a lot of winners at that time. Fast forward to today, there are several Black winners in the Kansas City Pitch Awards, several Black winners in the Kansas City Magazine Awards. And I know that is due to me starting the Kansas City People's Choice Awards. The Kansas City People's Choice Awards is so beneficial to us because it gives us our roses while we're still able to receive them. It gives us that recognition that we deserve. It puts money into Black businesses. I don't like to use the term small business because if you think small, you're going to stay small. So it puts money into our businesses and put money into our community. Not only that, it gives us an opportunity to get dressed up, to look the part, for us to really be shine and shown in a positive light. So that was one of the biggest pieces of creating the Kansas City People's Choice Awards, was just making sure we receive our notoriety as we're able to receive it. Starting off bad, it was surrounded by so much criticism that it made me question, should I continue on? And after the first year, we had a fight. The first year we was at Purcell High School, and there was a fight that had nothing to do with the awards. It was just other gentlemen there that had personal issues. And of course, going back to social media, they attacked the awards. This is why I didn't want to go. This is why Kansas City can't do this, blah, 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 blah. And seeing that, it could defeat you. But then as I read all the posts I was tagged in, over 200 posts I was tagged in, to where it was nothing but love and support. Terrell, keep your head up. Kansas City needs this. Keep going. Please don't give up on us. Anything that you can think of, Kansas City was behind it. Still, it was met with a lot of criticism because people did not understand how it worked. How did the voting take place? How did we vote for people? Of course, it was labeled a popularity contest. It was labeled as rigged. So we had to fight to keep the Kansas City People's Choice Awards afloat. And I did that simply by tuning out the negativity and focusing on the positivity. We had too much going on for me to just stay focused on what's not working. No, let me focus on what's working. Also, on top of that, I used that negativity to fuel my desire for us to grow. So as I stated earlier, we started at the Purcell High School of Performing Arts. To this past year, we just finished up at the Kaufman Center for the Performing Arts. That is a huge accomplishment that really got the Kansas City People's Choice Awards recognized, not just for me, but for our city as a whole. So many people was like just happy, and it was one of those moments that you just sit back in life and say, I finally did it. After 7 years, I finally did it. Because before, yes, every year was successful, but I don't feel like it was really accepted and respected until this last year because of us going into the Kaufman Center. You don't see us in the Kaufman Center. You don't see productions in the Kaufman Center. And it's not to say they're not Black productions, because there are Black neighborhood productions you don't see in the Kaufman Center. It's not common whatsoever. You see the Nutcracker Prince, things like that. The symphony is what takes place. So for us to share that same building, the same stage as these notorious, famous production shows, that was huge for Kansas City. A big piece of me still being here is definitely due to God. Him keeping me, him keeping his hands on me. As much as I wanted to take control and live life how I wanted to live life, he still played that role in my life. He never let me go. He allowed me to go out into the world, make mistakes, but then come back to him and complete to where I can be rebuilt over and over and over. And if I say this all the time, God will make you over if you allow him. And that's what happened in my life. I was able to be made over so many times until I got it right. And I still don't have it right, but at least I'm better than what I was before. So just reflecting back into how I survived, I know it's all God, not me, because I was in places where there were shootouts. I was in places where I could have lost my life. I was in accidents where I could have lost my life, but God kept me, and it was for his purpose. And I know now that purpose is for me to lead people, to lead disciples to God, to be a positive influence for Kansas City. I had my fun, and I don't regret anything I've done in my past. People, they talk about, my past, they talk about things I've done, and I don't think they understand that God was there too. He know what I did, and he still saved me. He still brought me through those bushes. He still brought me through those trenches to say, that's okay. You're able to be saved because I loved you. Now it's your turn to love people. I want Kansas City to remember me as a change agent, someone that used his platform in so many ways to help individuals. I want to be known as that humanitarian, that philanthropist, that giver. When I think about Kansas City and the direction that it has come in so many years, as humble as I am, I cannot say it did not happen without me. And, that's not a cocky response at all, but I know I played a huge role in so many different pieces, so many different ways that Kansas City has grown. Not just with the awards, not just with the organization, the kids that I help, but just the giving. Me being able to give back to our city, and me being an inspiration to others. So that's my legacy that I hope that one day people will be able to say, yeah, he was who he was, but at the same time, he loved Kansas City until his last day on this earth. Anybody that took the time out to watch this documentary, first off, I would like to say thank you. We have great production behind it. My guy, Jordan Stevens, who is one of the best barbers in the Kansas City area. Shout out to also the young ladies that's behind, lovely young ladies. They probably aren't really young, but they young, they beautiful. Shout out to them for even doing this with so many prominent people in Kansas City. But I hope this is life-changing. I hope the biggest part that I want you guys to take away, that it's never too late to change your life. No matter what you're doing in your life, if you are a deadbeat dad, deadbeat mom, all it takes is your desire to be different. All it takes is that desire to look yourself in the mirror as I'm looking at this camera and say, I'm the problem. And I hope that's the biggest piece I want you to take away from, is that God still works miracles. And if you need an example, I'm proof. Me, Terrell Ray, is here for Kansas City and to give God his glory.
Some lives prove that purpose doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Today, we didn't just hear a story. We witnessed a transformation from instability to influence, from brokenness to rebuilding, from surviving to leading. Terrell Ray is proof that your beginning do not get to decide your becoming. He faced loss that could have hardened him. He navigated systems that were designed to break him. He endured seasons where the world underestimated him. But in every moment where life tried to silence him, he chose courage over comfort, growth over bitterness, purpose over pain. And because of that choice, Kansas City didn't just gain a leader, it gained a builder of young men, a builder of community, a builder of hope. Terrell teaches us that legacy is not built from the absence of struggle, but from the decision to rise anyway. And the echoes of his life remind us where you start isn't your story, where you finish is your legacy. As we reflect on Terrell's impact, we invite you to take part of a celebration of legacy and economic empowerment. Black Wealth Week, February the 23rd through 28th, 2026 in Kansas City, Missouri. This is a week full of dedication to elevating Black entrepreneurs, ownership, and generational wealth. There will be workshops, panel discussions, business showcases, community activation, storytelling, networking events. And on Saturday, February the 28th, 2026, we will culminate the week with the Black Wealth Gala, a red carpet, black tie celebration honoring community leaders, innovators, and visionaries. Elegance, empowerment, unforgettable. Details on venue, tickets, and sponsorship opportunities are coming soon. Because wealth is not just what we have, it's what we build, it's what we share, and it's what we pass on.
Kansas City. Kansas City. All I know is work hard, play hard. Make a change for a lay in the graveyard. I know how to hustle hard. Boy, I earned this one. I was destined from the start, and I learned it from Kansas City. We were never top of the list. We gave them the sauce, told them class to